things change and things evolve. That's why there's so many unheard entrepreneurs. These are people that are putting out content with absolutely no traction or very little traction that can't convert, and no one really pays attention or buys from them. Now, things change, which means if you've heard me talk about the unheard entrepreneur, well, what's caused you to remain unheard has changed recently. And the way to break out of it has changed as well. So if you're interested to see if you are an unheard entrepreneur and how to break out of it in 2022, well, keep on listening, because that's exactly what we're talking about in today's episode. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we get to talk about the unheard entrepreneur. And we're going to go a little deeper than we have in the past. But more importantly, I want to talk about how to fix the unheard entrepreneur trap if you are in it. Now, if you have listened to us for I guess any amount of time, you've heard any of my episodes, you likely heard me talk about the unheard entrepreneur. And you might think you know what it is, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to talk about some things we haven't really talked about yet. One of the reasons why is things are changing, and they're changing fast. And as things change, there's more mistakes that you could make that lead you to become an unheard entrepreneur. There's more things that you haven't adapted yet that could lead you to being an unheard entrepreneur. And to be honest with you, there's just more competition coming up that's going to cause you to become an unheard entrepreneur. And so, in short, what an unheard entrepreneur is just someone who puts out a ton of content. So you're likely starting some kind of online business, and this could be a course-based business. Maybe it's a service. Maybe it's like a program, a coaching program, or something along those lines. And sometimes even e-com too. It's like any online business where you're going to be putting out content and no one seems to be paying attention to the content. We call that unheard entrepreneur. And it can feel, well, the emotions attached to it can come in a lot of different ways. I would say the number one way that most people feel when they are the unheard entrepreneur is they are confused as to why people aren't paying attention. They're looking at someone else, like their competition, and going like, why are they paying attention to this person? And they just feel like they have so much expertise and value to add, and they feel so frustrated that they can't get that out there. Like they just can't go help people. They just really want to go help people, and you can't. You know you're good at what you do, but no one seems to pay attention. And there's a lot of reasons why this happens. And it's going to be, again, like I said, it's going to be getting worse and worse because competition is getting more intense and more intense. And I like to use the analogy of a grocery store. And if you're in like a small town with like 1,000 people and you're the only grocery store, like you're going to be fine. People need to eat, and there's a grocery, and people need to buy groceries, and you're the only one they can go to. Now, when this becomes a problem, well, actually, let me go a little further with that before we move on. You could even make mistakes as that grocery store, right? Like you could even not have customer service, not carry all the best products, not listen to your people, but they're still going to come to you because you're the only place there, right? You could even have weird hours. They're still going to come to you. You don't have to cater to them at all. You don't have to change. You literally don't have to do much of anything. You're going to succeed because you're the only option for a need that people have. But when more competition comes up and comes up and comes up, and like, let's say another grocery store and another one, before you know it, there's 5 grocery stores servicing 1,000 people, you're likely going to go out of business. You're likely going to stop getting customers because you're not catering to their hours. You're not catering to what they need. You're not meeting them where they're at. You're not listening to them. You're not innovating. You're not evolving. You're going to go out of business. Now, in an online business, it's actually very difficult to go out of business because it's very low barrier of entry, meaning that you could technically, like if you open up a coffee shop or a local based business, you have rent, you have money, you have expenses, you have payroll. If no revenue is coming in, you're going to go out of business. With an online business, you just have to give up your time, and most people don't value their time. So they will say that, oh, this business is free. It's not costing me anything. And that's actually pretty dangerous because when you're going out of business and you're wasting money every single month, it's going to get you to kick your butt into gear and to go like, yeah, I need to like innovate and change and do all of this stuff. The problem is with an online business, when you're not losing money every month because it's free to put up content, it's free to grow a following, it's free to have Instagram, it's basically free to have a website, it's free to put up content. When it's free and you're not losing money, there's nothing there that's going to force you to change. There's not enough pain to force you to change. Now, going back to the whole grocery store thing, you're going to go out of business because there's too much competition. There's too many options. If you're not the best, then, or let me put it this way. If you're not perceived as the best or perceived as the one that's going to cater to what they want, you're going to go out of business. And that's what's happening with a lot of people's content right now is you have so many competitors coming in and so many people starting online businesses. And what's hard about this, again, like I said, no one really goes out of business until you just decide to move on. No one's like hard pressed, which means you have a lot of people pushing out a lot of content and they're going to keep pushing out content for a lot of years because there is no financial burden they have to take on by doing that. So even if their content's not great and they just do a lot of how-to and educational content, the market's getting flooded with more and more and more and more and more how-to educational content because that's what 99% of people do. So if you're an unheard entrepreneur and you're an expert and you are getting stuck in that trap where people are just seeing you as the same as everyone else, no matter how good you are, which by the way is going to keep getting worse and worse and worse, it starts to become a big problem. And again, going back to this whole thing is that your competition isn't necessarily the people at the top. Your competition is also the people that are not making any money, but are pushing out a ton of content. Because again, there's no financial burden to start an online business or not a big one. So you just have content creators all the time. And I'm going to use content creators instead of business owners, because if you're just pushing out content, you don't have any money coming in, you're not a business owner, you're more or less a content creator. So you have all these content creators that are flooding the market with content. And so if you want to stand out as a business owner, you have to be different. You have to communicate different. And I have 5 steps that I want to bring you through to go from this unheard entrepreneur, this person who's just creating content, to someone who's standing out, is the authority in their space, who's a thought leader, and really is creating demand while adding value. Okay. So this process really starts with you. This process, let's take one step back. This process actually starts by understanding where the problem lies. And you should understand where the problem lies right now because we just kind of went through it. I call it the content circle of death, and maybe you've heard me talk about it before, but I always say there's a circle, right? And that circle represents your niche. And going back to that grocery store analogy, I said there's 1,000 people in that town. Well, that town may grow over the years to 2,000 people, and your niche may be growing as well. More and more people may be coming into your niche. The problem is every time a new content creator comes up or a new competition person comes up, the niche gets split in half, and then in thirds, and then in fourths, and then in fifths and sixths, and so on. And so that niche isn't growing fast enough. So although we do want a lot of how-to and educational content, information-based content, it can't be all we focus on because you get stuck in what I call the content circle of death, where the only way you can add value is by delivering information. And by the way, I'm going to give you a ton of different ways to add value besides information today. But that becomes the only way you can add value. And when you're only adding value the same way as everyone else, you start to say the same thing, or you're perceived by the audience as saying the same thing. So for example, if I'm a weight loss coach and I put out a video, I titled How to Lose 10 Pounds, and competitor A, B, C, D, E, F, and G all put out a video titled How to Lose 10 Pounds. Even though the content may be different, I might have a different philosophy around it, simply because of the way I titled and communicated what this video is about, and I communicate the same way everyone else was, I'm now competing to get the click over 5, 10 other competitors. So why would I continue to do that? Why would I continue to even just title my videos the same way? That's one of the things that leads to an unheard entrepreneur is you just get stuck in this content circle of death where the niche is expanding, but competitors are coming in even faster. And then you all start saying the same thing over and over and over again, or it's perceived the same way. So the question is, well, how do we break out of this? And there's a distinction I want to start with. The distinction that most unheard entrepreneurs haven't realized yet is that the reason why they're stuck inside this content circle of death is because they're talking at their audience. They're not talking to their audience. And there's a difference there. When we're just giving tutorials and we're just giving information, we're talking at our audience. Here's what you need to do. Go do this, go do this. I'm just going to tell you the answer because I'm the authority. Here's what I believe. Here's what I know the answer is. Blah, 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 go do it, this stuff. But it's the person that talk to their audience and talk with their audience that are usually the ones that start to succeed. These are people that are speaking with compassion. These are the people that speak to the actual real specific pain. These are people that understand the pain. These are people that understand the mistakes. These are people that communicate where their audience is at. Let me identify where you're at, what you're thinking, what your thoughts are. Let me have some compassion to that. Let me tell you that that's okay. Let me give you a different perspective, right? They're talking with their audience and their communication style is really bringing their audience through a process of connection. I'm going to connect with you. I'm going to build rapport with you. I'm going to open up different options for you. I'm not just going to talk at you and give you a tutorial and tell you what to do. I'm actually going to form a relationship with you through my content, through my communication. So the biggest problem is that a lot of unheard entrepreneurs talk at their audience and they're stuck inside this constant circle of death. And this happened, and I'll tell you why this whole process is happening right now. And it kind of blows my mind a little bit that, at least from my awareness, I'm not aware of anyone else talking about messaging in the way we are. But I'm kind of a little bit in shock that no one else is really talking about this or recognized it. But the reason why so many people focus on tutorials and information is there's two things that have happened. Number one, a lot of the people that are at the top right now got started like I did 5 to 10 years ago. And when you got started 5 or 10 years ago, you were essentially the grocery store in a town of 1,000 people, and you're the only one. You went into a town that had no grocery store, you became the first one. And so again, like the grocery store, like I said, you can make all of these mistakes as the grocery store. Not listen to your customers, do what you wanted, you're still going to make money. And that's essentially what happened. All these people and all these experts came in and they started teaching their stuff 10 years ago, and they just did whatever the heck they wanted to do. They did tutorials, they taught their expertise, they added value by giving things away for free, which by the way still work. We still want to do that, but it can't be 100% of what we do. And they saw results. That's what got them to the top. So can't blame them for teaching what they did. The problem is they're teaching strategies of what they did based on what the market and environment was 5, 10 years ago, not what the market is in today's day and age. And again, hopefully you've heard it on the podcast. We had Bob Helig on the podcast who had a $2 million business and was stuck and plateaued. And he said the exact same thing I just told you. He said, I could show up and I could serve and give tutorials, but I plateaued. It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work to the level it used to. And so I had to change and adapt. And by going through our program and working with us, he was able to go to $4 million within a year. He was able to double his business. And that's what we have to look at. We have to look at what advice are we getting that's good for us, but also relevant to the market situation now. And that's what I want to help you guys with. I want you to learn how to talk with your audience. I want you to learn how to connect with them. I want you to be able to help them, educate them, connect with them, make them feel like you understand them. That's the biggest thing. My wife and I started doing this thing where we create a coffee shop inside of our living room. So we put on the TV like a coffee shop thing and have our fireplace going, and we just kind of like make tea and read or play checkers or whatever. And she got the new Brene Brown book. And I think it's called Heart to Your Atlas to the Heart or something like that. And she was reading the book. And I asked her, what is it about Brene Brown that you like so much? And she goes, she's the only author that when she speaks or talks or writes that I feel like actually understands me and gets me. Now, if we look at what Brene Brown does, and if I ask Brene Brown to create a bunch of tutorials on how to find happiness, like create a 5-minute tutorial on how to find happiness, entitled How to Find Happiness, and I asked a bunch of her competitors to do that, and I threw them up online, and I didn't tell anyone whose video was whose. Like there's no way that Brene Brown's is going to get more traction than someone else's just based off of that alone. But because she's able to focus on communication and messaging in different ways, she's able to speak with her audience and to her audience instead of speaking at her audience. She's able to get into this deeper realm of communication. She's able to have people read her content or consume her content or experience her content and automatically feel, I'm seen. This person gets me. And that's one of the things that we've heard all the time. I've started to hear more and more lately is that I feel so seen when I consume your content. And at first, admittedly, I had no idea what the heck that person was talking about. Like, I feel seen? What do you mean you feel seen by, by consuming my content? And I realized that because I speak from experience, I speak from mastery, I speak to really specific pains and thoughts and feelings and emotions, that when people consume that, they go, this person understands what I'm going through. So you have to remember, when we give tutorials and we give information, it's much more than just teaching someone something. It's letting them know that this journey, this path, this roadblock that you're on is normal and it's fine. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean that you're awful. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're worthless. It means that it's a part of the journey and you're normal just like us. And it's okay that you're going through a hard time. Part of being a thought leader, part of being a course creator, part of owning an online business is that we're fixing problems. And if we're not going to address the compassion side of it or the empathy inside of our content, and if we're not able to even communicate that in the right way, then we're missing out on a huge piece of it. And when we look at the biggest experts in the world, that's what they all do. There's deeper layers to messaging, content, and messaging that we need to focus on. So let's just start at the beginning. I'm going to go through 5 different things that we want to do to break out of this unheard entrepreneur trap. Number 1 is, I kind of tapped on this already, but you need to understand them. And I'm going to go a little deeper with this because that's still a very surface level way to look at it. The biggest advice that I hear from people all the time is like, just get inside the head of your audience. It's like, okay, cool. How do I do that? Like, do I just get on the magical school bus like back in the days and hop inside their head and look in the brain? No. The problem is most people don't know how to look inside the head of their audience. And I'll give you the answer right now. I'll tell you one of the ways that I was able to do it. Is I shifted from being an expert inside of my space and of my niche to a focus of mastery over my craft. And I believe to my core that when you understand something better than everyone else, you can communicate it better and deeper. When you focus on mastery, you start to discover things that other people haven't discovered yet. And when you discover other things that people haven't discovered yet, you start to teach things that other people can't teach. Do you want to know why I have, how I created thought reversals, how I created all the frameworks, how I had an understanding of subconscious communication, how I had an understanding of how connection worked? It was because I dove inside of my work. When we look back at Brene Brown, one of the things she said is, I studied this for 7 years before I ever taught it. I studied vulnerability. She's a doctor, I believe. Shoot, now I'm doubting myself. But yeah, I think she has her PhD, but she did 7 years of research before she ever taught anything. And 7 years of research and working with people and getting that knowing gives her a depth of communication and understanding that no one else is going to have. And I think we're so stuck in this idea that all I need to do is teach, regurgitate, and then I'll be successful. And it's not as simple as that anymore because the market has shifted. When we started the Video 4X Effect, you know what I did? We launched a course, we launched a coaching program, and we launched a service all at the same time. You know who did all of that? I did with Taylor. Taylor ran the operations, but I mean the work, like the IP, the intellectual property, the understanding of how things are, what needs to be scripted, I did it. Every single client we had for the first 1.5 to 2 years of our program, I scripted their videos. Every client we had 20, 30 scripts, wrote them all. I did. We had coaching students in our mentorship program for the first 2.5 years of the Video 4X Effect being out there. You know who worked with them one-on-one? I did. We didn't bring coaches on until recently. I did the calls with our students. I did the one-on-one calls, and each one of them had like 6 one-on-one calls with us. So when I have 100, 200 students that each get 6 calls with me, That's like 600 one-on-one calls that I did to work through people's messaging, to look at what their struggles were. Why aren't they getting this? What aren't they seeing? What are the best questions? How am I actually helping them? Most people might call it intuition, like you just have an intuition, you're just really good at messaging. I am, but there's still a process that I go through. There's still commonalities that people have that keep them stuck. I did all of that. We had over 1,000 students in the Video 4X program. I answered their questions for the first couple of years until we brought on coaches. I had to go into the depths to find out and discover things that other people couldn't discover and therefore can't teach. One of the reasons why I understand people so well, and I know specifically what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, the mistakes you're making. I know all of that. I'm willing to bet I could take 100 people that are the unheard entrepreneur, and I can list out a list of mistakes that people are doing. And I promise you 98% of them are probably making at least one of those mistakes. I just understand them. And I'm not saying like mistakes like, oh, you're just overwhelmed. Like specific mistakes. Here's literally what you're doing. Here's how many how-to videos you're probably putting out. Here's what your growth probably looks like. Here's the thoughts that you're probably having in your head. Here's the frustration that I know you're likely having. Like it's very specific things. Now, the reason why this is so important is because when you can understand them at a certain level, you also get to feel the compassion. You get to feel the empathy. You also learn what specific language to use, and that speaks to the subconscious mind. So when you start to understand your audience so well, and you start to say, here's the specific mistakes and pain and thoughts you're having, what happens is as soon as you say that and it's specific, the audience subconscious goes, hey, starts firing. Hey, pay attention. Pay attention now because they're talking about you. They're talking to you. This is when you start getting people to say, you understand me. I feel seen when I heard your content. You get me. And that's usually where a lot of my communication starts. Did you notice how we started this podcast episode talking about the mistakes and the pain and it's all right and here's kind of the problem and let me diagnose the issue and show you why it's happening? I didn't really teach you anything. I just kind of exposed things. I spoke to the subconscious mind. I understood you. That's step one. So again, I was in the trenches. I was understanding the failing. I was making mistakes. I was trying different things. And I want to make a difference here. I'm not talking about experience. Most people go like, okay, Brandon's talking about like understanding them. He just means getting more experience. I don't mean getting more experience. Getting more experience only guarantees that you're going to experience failure. Mastery means, yes, you have the experience, but you've also found not one solution, but many solutions. So experience doesn't guarantee you have a solution. It just means you've tried. Mastery is not only meaning you've tried and you got the experience, but you've also found 10 different solutions when most people think there's one. Okay, let's move on to step two. Step two, if you want to break out of the unheard entrepreneur trap cycle, you have to learn how to be engaging. So I'll keep this very simple because we do have a boot camp coming up that's going to help you with this even more. And obviously we address a lot of this inside our new program, which is called New Generation Mastery. It's basically Video 4X 2.0. We talk way more about this, but engaging means to communicate differently, talk differently, speak differently, title things differently. So for example, that video that we use which was how to lose 10 pounds. Why not add the words without at the end of it? How to lose 10 pounds without, and then listing things that people don't like doing. How to lose 10 pounds without long runs. How to lose 10 pounds without dieting. How to lose 10, like that already is going to be a little bit more, it's going to be a little different than everyone else, but it's also going to be engaging because you're speaking to the mind of the people. You're saying without doing these things that you don't like doing, right? So there's other ways to be engaging too. We can do stuff like that. We can use identity and beliefs inside of our subject lines, headlines, content. We can tell more stories. Instead of just teaching all the time, we're giving more stories. We can teach through story. We can let more of our personality through. We can understand where people's belief systems are and thoughts are and get them to question their beliefs and thoughts. There's so many different ways to be engaging. But again, if you're going to be in the online space, you have to be able to engage your audience. You have to be able to get them to hit the like button, to share things. And again, people like to share things that reinforce their identity, that reinforce their beliefs. They like to share. That's the stuff that gets shared. All the stuff I share is either like I found something funny and I want to share it with my wife, or here's a belief I had. This piece of content reinforced that belief and I want to share it with someone. Here's an identity I have, or, I share a lot of like parent jokes and memes with my wife and other parent friends because it is funny. It's part of my identity, right? So there's different ways to engage people. Step number 3 is that you have to learn how to add value outside of just more information. I'm just gonna tell you right now, if your only method to add value into someone's life is to either answer their questions or give them more information, you're not gonna make it very far inside of this space. Most likely, like nothing's definite. Let's just put it this way. It's gonna be very difficult. You're gonna be swimming upriver. So I'm gonna give you some ways to add value outside of just giving people information. Again, this is stuff we cover inside of our program. We bring you through a whole process to be able to figure this stuff out. But number 1 is shifting someone's perspective. This is why thought reversals are so value adding. And this is kind of what I did even in the beginning of today's podcast episode, is if you shift someone's perspective, you get them to see something differently. And if they have a perspective that's causing them suffering and they don't see it or are not aware of it, you can make them aware of it. That's incredibly value adding. It's kind of like I could tell you how, like I used to be a runner. So in high school, I used to run all the time. And in college, got a degree or a scholarship to run. So I could, like if you wanted to run under a 5-minute mile, like that's a goal of yours and you just can't do it. I could tell you what to do to break a 5-minute mile. But if you're doing 5 things that are actually preventing you from running the 5-minute mile, and I make you aware of these 5 things that are preventing you from running the 5-minute mile, that could be more valuable to you than teaching you what to actually do. Because by removing those 5 mistakes, that could be enough to actually push you to that 5-minute mile barrier. You could be doing simple things by maybe you're not wearing the right shoes. So although I could tell you what to do, I could tell you, hey, do this training exercise, do this with your mindset. But you have shoes on that are way too heavy and it could shave 5 seconds off your time because you're not wearing track spikes. Well, I could tell you, don't wear heavy shoes. That's going to be sometimes more valuable than anything. So shifting someone's perspective, telling them what not to do is also incredibly value adding. Also, entertaining. Being entertaining is another way to add value in someone's life. That's why movies are and concerts and music. These are all, the whole entertainment space is massive. People don't pay for things that don't add value inside their life. And there's billions, with a B, billions of dollars being spent on entertainment. So I want you to be careful with this because we're not entertainers. We are thought leaders, but thought leaders can also be entertaining. Tony Robbins puts on big, huge shows and does a lot of theatrics inside of his talks and stuff like that, in-person talks. There's also ways to be super entertaining inside of your content, inside of your podcast. Tell more stories. Mix up the emotions. Be sentimental. Be vulnerable. Those are all things that could lead to entertainment. Another one is reinforcing identity and beliefs. Like I said, people want to know that it's okay to be them. They want their perspectives. They want who they are at the core of their being to be enforced as something good or something normal. There's other people like me. So when I talk about being an entrepreneur or I talk about different beliefs that I have and I reinforce that and someone else has the same belief, yes, we're going to connect off that belief, but I'm also reinforcing their belief. Like, hey, it's okay to have this belief. It's okay to have this perspective. So reinforcing beliefs and identities, basically telling people that who they are is great, who they are is normal. They can thrive because of who they are. Reinforcing their beliefs and identities is another way to add value. Another way to add value is just to accept them. Again, remember the whole Brene Brown example about making my wife feel seen. She feels accepted. She wasn't aware that other people had these issues or these thoughts or these concerns. So when people talk about it, they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel like what they're going through is normal. They don't feel like an outcast anymore. And all of you, even on this podcast, hopefully what you're realizing too is that the struggle that you have right now, it's normal. It's fine. It doesn't mean you're a failure because you can't get your content heard. It's a part of the journey. It's a struggle we all have to go through. And without this struggle that you're going through with content, you may have never found who you really are. Sometimes we need these problems with content to break down these beliefs that we have around content or who we should be and just be who we are at the core of our being. So this struggle you're having is a necessary thing to really uncovering who you are and uncovering powerful content. So it's okay. So again, number 3 is you have to learn to add value in other ways. Shifting perspectives, entertainment, reinforcing identity and beliefs, accepting them, helping them end their suffering. Those are all amazing ways to add value. So we have 2 more steps to breaking out of the unheard entrepreneur trap, but let's just recap where we're at right now. Number 1, understand them. Understanding them usually means a mastery over your craft. Number 2, learn how to be engaging. Number 3, learn how to add value in other ways besides information. Number 4 is creating demand. Your content should create demand. And if you don't know how to create demand, well, I'm going to give you one quick example right now. That's probably a good indicator of why you're in the unheard entrepreneur trap. So one of the easiest ways is to add pain and mistakes together. Okay, so let me just give you an example here. If I said to you right now, if you're listening to this podcast through headphones or through your car speakers, then I'm willing to bet at some point today, you're going to get frustrated with your content and your lack of progress in your content. Now, what I just did is those 2 things have nothing to do with each other. Whether or not you're listening to this podcast in the car through speakers or headphones has nothing to do with your frustration level with content, right? But what's going to happen is if later today you were listening, if you were the person listening with headphones or through your car speakers and you did feel frustration with your content or some point today, do you feel frustration with your content? What's going to happen is your subconscious mind is going to go like, I need to talk to Brandon because he was absolutely right. And you're going to assume that I know why that's happening, which means you're going to assume that I have the solution. That's called demand creation. You're coming to me because you think I have the solution. I never said I had the solution. In fact, those 2 things have nothing to do with each other. But because I was very specific on a pain and I was very specific on an outcome or result or a mistake causing that pain, what happens in your mind is you automatically go, he has the solution. Again, you have to be very, very specific with it. This is an automated response that you can create inside of your audience. But the beauty of this is that when I speak so specifically, it makes my audience feel seen. It makes them feel heard. It makes them feel like I understand them because I do. And then when I mix it with, here's a very specific mistake or result that you can experience because of that, well, their mind starts to go, he has the solution. So that's a way to create demand. And it's a way to also connect with my audience and engage with my audience. So there's not a million, but there's a lot of different ways we can do this. There's a lot of different ways we can create demand. We can work on a bigger ecosystem. And again, this is all stuff we cover in our course, and it's the stuff we cover in the 3-day boot camp that we have coming up as well. But your content, if you want to break out of the unheard entrepreneur trap, you have to learn how to create demand for what you sell. So when people get on your sales mechanism, they're not waiting, like they already want what you have to offer. In fact, sometimes people don't even have to attend your sales mechanism to want what you offer. So you have to be able to create demand. Remember what I said. I said if you're an unheard entrepreneur, you're really just a content creator because you're not making any sales. To go from content creator to business owner or thought leader, you have to learn how to create demand. And the 5th step is to just be different. What are the things that people aren't saying? Now, don't be different for the sake of being different. Be different because you have a level of mastery and understanding of what you do, and you can see things that people can't see. This is about awareness. What can you bring awareness to that people don't have awareness? Does that make sense? What areas of people's life can you bring awareness where they are lacking awareness? That's a better way to say it. For example, right now, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who think tutorials and educational content and how-to content is how to build a business online. They lack a massive amount of awareness to what's really going on. So what I do is I just bring awareness to them to end suffering. So I bring them from unaware to aware. And by doing that, I'm different. I'm exploring things that they haven't seen before. I'm giving them new frameworks. I'm helping them discover things that they haven't discovered before. So we have to be different. And I even go so far as to just using different words than everyone else. I go as far as like if someone's going to say, use the word tutorial all the time, I'll start saying how-to guide. When people are using the word free in their headlines and their ads, I say no cost. When people are saying doing live boot camps, I'll call them no pitch boot camps because I'm not going to pitch you anything. So I'll use different language just to stand out. Now, here's one more thing to think about. Again, we talk about this inside our program. We have actually 6 different ways to do this, but most people also think when they educate, it has to be done in a tutorial form. There's so many different ways to educate and teach without using tutorials, without using step by step by step. So when I teach, I look at other ways of, okay, cool, here's my how-to topic. How do I do this without using a tutorial? How do I do that? And we have 6 different frameworks we use, and we go into more depth inside of our program, but those are all different ways that I try to be different. Okay, so if you are the unheard entrepreneur, if you feel like anything that we talked about today resonates with you, those are the mistakes. I'm going to tell you, just put it all on the table and just be very blunt with you. First of all, I get it and I understand it because I was that person. And I know how frustrating it is to be that unheard entrepreneur where you're putting out content and you just want to help people. I get it. You want to help people and you know you can, but it feels like it's an uphill battle. Like the universe just put a wall in front of you and you just can't break through the wall. You just want to climb this top mountain and scream, I can help you, let me help you. I get it. I've been there. But you can't keep doing the same things. You can't keep just trying this and trying that. You got to go full force into this, really learn how to do it. And learning means like getting your hands dirty, putting things out quickly, learning the concepts, understanding what I'm talking about. And if you don't do anything different, you're never going to change that. I don't care how many videos you do. If you don't start changing the way you're doing content, the way you're communicating, nothing will change for you. And you'll stay stuck as the unheard entrepreneur who's basically just a course creator, a content creator. I don't want that for you. So what we're doing, if you really are serious about changing this, you're really serious about breaking out of the unheard entrepreneur trap, you have a lot of people to follow. There's a lot of people teaching content. The point is you need to choose someone to follow. You can't keep going around and guessing and tweaking and whatever. Now, if anything I said resonates with you, I would love to be that mentor that you follow. And so what we're doing is we have a 3-day boot camp set up to help you go even further with this. Again, you don't have to follow me. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to follow my philosophy. It is good to question. Does Brandon really know what he's talking about? Blah, blah, blah. But if anything I said makes sense to you, right now you have a choice to make, and it's free. So it shouldn't be a hard choice. This bootcamp is free. And we're going to give you all that information. Actually, I'll just give you the link right now. It's brandonlucero.com/3-day. So the number 3 and then day. So 3-day bootcamp. Okay. And then we do have our course opening up in a little bit as well, but we'll talk more about that later. So again, if you want to fix this and you're actually serious about it, you have to find someone who knows what we're talking about because it will speed up your process of fixing it. And if that person is me, then go ahead and register for that bootcamp called brandonlucero.com/3-day. It's the number 3 and then the word day. With that said, we'll go ahead and end it here. If you have any questions, make sure you join our Facebook group. Yes, we do have a Facebook group along with that bootcamp that you can join. I'm in there showing up to serve you as best as I can. So hopefully I'll see you on the bootcamp and I'll see you inside the Facebook group and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.